Today, you've probably sensed a theme with the way they put together the program. So first we had Joe talk to you about the marketing aspects of your business. Charlie did a wonderful job about talking about the next step in your business. I'm kind of the nuts and bolts guy. So I'm going to spend some time with you about how to get a little bit more out of your business and to be more efficient, okay? The marketing pieces that Joe did will tie into some of the things that we'll talk about because it's about automation and technology and doing more with less. So first, is this you? Yep. Is this your office? Is this your home? Yep. Right? So today I want to get to this with you. Now I live in Ashburn, Virginia in Loudoun County outside of DC. And we have the largest number of data centers outside of Silicon Valley. 70% of all the internet traffic goes through my back door. So a lot of my clients are tied into these centers, providing backup systems, different services for those centers. So simplicity is where we want to get you and your technology, and we're going to go through how to get there. So first of all, let's do some ground rules. I'm not here to promote any product, I'm going to talk about some. I'm not here to promote any vendors. I do not have a financial interest in anything I'm going to show you. No hidden agenda. I'll touch on compliance, but I'm not an attorney, I'm not a trust officer, I'm not a compliance, and you need to talk with your own compliance department before. Any questions that you have during the presentation, put your hand up, let me know, yell out. This is interactive. So who am I? I'm you. Get up every morning, go to work, have employees. I have 3 employees. One that's been with me 8 or 9 years. He's my operations manager. And Charlie, he and I are actually working on our succession plan. And to add to Charlie's point, I went about it one of the ways the other gentleman talked about, which is having somebody in-house, paying them a salary, getting them to know the clients. There's a great book by Tom Grau Sr. about how to set up a successful succession for financial advisors. It's available on Amazon, and it's about 40 bucks. Best money I ever spent. So I would highly recommend that book. So my office, I have an office manager. She takes care of my schedule. I do not schedule myself. My staff does. I give them what I want. When I want to work, I block out days, and I'll show you a piece of software that we use in the office that helps her automate things. And if we need to send something out for somebody to schedule something, they can actually go on our website at any time and schedule a meeting with me. Okay? And if we're doing things correctly, it'll automatically show up on my calendar, and we review that every week. Thomas is new. He's a paraplanner. So through MDRT, a buddy of mine in New Hampshire, his son was graduating from the University of New Hampshire with a finance degree. And I was having trouble with staffing. So I said, can I talk to him? So I entered into an arrangement to help his dad and to help me. So I did a 3-year residency program. He is now completing his 3rd quarter with me. He's passed his life and health. He's passed his Series 7. He's passed his 66, and he just passed his first CLU CFP class. Okay? So there's lots of different ways that you can look for a successor, but you have to invest in them like someone else invested in me. I am the product of buying a practice when I was very young. Okay? So it's a way to give back. Michael's been with me. I do not do paperwork. It's a rule. I sign, that's it. So I'm going to show you how to get to that stage. If you do not already have a bookkeeper for your business, you need to get one. I have financial statements done for my business every month. I review them every quarter, and I meet with my accountant, who we play a little golf and talk about stuff. Okay? So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover how to do a game plan for your technology. I'm going to teach you how to do a proper assessment of your technology. If you don't have a budget, you should, and we're going to talk about a technology budget, and I'll actually show you mine. We're going to talk about cloud computing and why you need to look into the cloud as your primary role or primary piece of business in how you operate your business, primary tool in operating your business. Electronic records. This year is 10 years that I've been paperless. 10. If you're not paperless, I'm going to show you how to do it cheaply. Virtual office. I've got a friend of mine and mentor 2 years ago. He sold his house, his wife retired, they moved to a nice, small harbor town on the Chesapeake Bay. And I helped him do a virtual office. We joke, he travels more than he works. But guess what? His clients always have, he has access to everything, and he's got a staff that's remote. He works at one place, shows up a couple days a week, all the meetings are set, it's great. He would not be able to do that without technology. Tools and tips we're going to go through. I was asked yesterday to modify my presentation, to add some on the DOL. I'm on an advisory board for our broker-dealer. We have been working very hard on the DOL. I'm going to share some of that with you on where and how things may play out. And it's for information purposes, but it'll get you thinking about potential changes you may need to make in your business. And lastly, I'm going to finish up with some sales ideas. So, game plan. One, the first thing you need to do is why? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you going to use everything in-house? And you can go through pros and cons to that. Do you want to outsource it for vendors? Primary thing today is integration. Does everything work together? I'm going to show you a grid of how we have everything in our office working together. Logical order of implementation. So you need to think through what are the things that you have to do and what is the most logical order for you to get that done. Next, a timeline and the cost, which we talked about in the budget. And you have to do both hard dollar costs of the physical software you may buy or the services that you may buy, but also the soft dollar costs of staff time. Staff time is precious. You don't want them to do things that really is going to take them away from really promoting and having your business grow. The last thing is training. 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 Because if you don't have good training, guess what? You're going to have a piece of software that's the 800-pound gorilla. Nobody wants to use it because it's too complicated. Pick the processes that you want to automate and use it, but teach and train and have that in your budget. And the last thing is monitor. So have you ever done an assessment? Anybody here? Okay, I see a few. Great. So what is a technology assessment? Well, determine what kind of hardware and software you have, what goals you are trying to achieve, and how that can help you. Do you work remotely? Do you have satellite offices? Do you have to integrate with a home office? I have a home office, and I've got a setup that I'll tell you about a little later. Who's going to use it? You? Your staff? Do you have to integrate with other programs? So all these things should go into your assessment. The last thing is cybersecurity. Big topic today. Has anybody in the room done an assessment threat on your office? Anybody? Good. I just had one done. Now, we had everything pretty much okay. We got pretty high marks, but I had a hole. And we just spent about $700 to put in a new firewall and to do a new VPN, so when I'm out, I can go directly to my office securely. And if you're working from home or you're working from a coffee shop and some of those things, email is fine because they use certain technologies. But if you're going to do anything where you're tying into any personally identifiable information into your network, you need to have it locked down. Okay. So what's best for your office? Usually your CRM, your customer relationship, or your database, that's your core, okay? So think hub and spoke. So have something that's going to integrate. These are some of the things, the big items. Imaging. So we use one piece of technology that we use for 10 years. Very happy with it. They've upgraded it. Our investment data and research that we use. Any forms that we use. We have Laser App. Anybody use Laser App? Perfect. Our financial planning system, we use eMoney that integrates. And then we have other back office systems that I'll show you as well. So this is the document that we use that, and I'll just go through. We take each computer, we go by memory, we go by system, processor, and then we list all the software, okay? So that if you have an issue with your computers, and one goes down one morning when you come in, because it's always the morning you have a meeting, you come in, you fire everything up, and guess what? It's not going to work. So this is a great thing that you can take, have available, printed hard copy, have someplace safe in your office so that if you need to call tech support or whatever, depending on who's doing your support, you've got it ready. This also will alert you to anomalies. So when they upgrade things. So we use a firm that did our assessment. Part of that assessment, every morning at 4 a.m., it runs a report, sends it off to them, and it tells me what software on every computer in my office needs an upgrade. Is it a security? Is there a patch available, etc.? Okay? That alone gives me a ton of security. Now I'm going to add one more thing to this. I was part of a beta for our broker-dealer to do this. One, because we could comprehend a lot of what was going on. As part of that, by using this software, by using this system, we now, if we had a breach, we don't have to go and file with our state attorney general, the Securities Commission, and all those other things. Why? Because we've done such due diligence that we will be exempt from that. Things like encryption. So this is key going forward for your office. Have you prepared a budget? Now, we do a budget, and then I also have a technology budget. So first of all, for a budget, if you're a small office starting out, write down what your minimum requirement. My brother is in software, and he says, before they bring a product to market, they say, what is the minimum that we can do to get this product out the door? Make it viable, but what is the minimum? Do the same thing for your office. What's the minimum you need to start? Determine what your growth should be, or what you want it to be, and whether or not the software that you're going to purchase is scalable. Upfront versus ongoing costs. Some things you can do on a monthly basis, some things you have to do upfront. So you might have to write a check for hardware. That's an upfront cost, okay? But you need to make sure that you do a detailed budget of what your ultimate monthly nut is going to be, so you know whether or not you can handle it long term. Then incorporate that back into your overall budget, okay? So here's my technology budget. We have dictation software. After meeting, I dictate. I might dictate from the car. I do a lot of web presentations. Go to meeting. I can be sitting at my desk. We preload everything into a client's file. I've got everything ready to go. And guess what? I can have a meeting. They can be anywhere with their laptop and a phone. And I can be at my desk, or I can be at home. I can be anywhere. Our CRM, we use Office 365. For a lot of reasons. It's great. We pay 4 of us $20 a month. If you're not on Office, depending on what your agency has, but if you're on your own, Office 365 is a great thing because you get all the updates for Office. It's $20 a month. Okay? All these slides are available for you, and the updated ones will upload as well. So, encryption, our website we do in-house. Internet access, that's what I pay. FiOS. I use IP phones, so everyone in our office has an IP phone. It's an internet protocol phone, so and it goes to my cell phone. So I can call from my cell phone. They think I'm calling from the office. That's a nice thing. Financial planning software, form filling software. I still employ consultants. Even though we do a lot in-house, we still need to have that expertise periodically. Email archiving, etc. So doing a budget will help you kind of look at what it is overall. When you hire a new employee, I know what it costs to hire a new employee as well. Cloud computing. First of all, what is it? It's software or data access storage services that do not require end user knowledge of the physical location. And the best way to use as an analogy is we all use the electrical grid, but we don't know how it works. Well, cloud computing is kind of the same way. It's out there, and it's probably one of the biggest things that the computer and the technology arena has brought to us, to have the ability to have all that data out there. So when I first started, we had peer-to-peer. Anybody remember peer-to-peer? Good. So that was kind of the first iteration. Everything was housed on my computer, but I could hook it up and see the things that are on the other computer. Then they went to server-based. So I had a server, and then I had the client, i.e. the workstation, and the data would go back and forth. So if you take those two together with the cloud, that's kind of what you see. And if you go one step further, peer-to-peer and cloud is very, very similar. So we kind of almost went full circle. So cloud computing, there's a lot of different ones. We use an internal cloud through Office 365 and SharePoint. We have some things. You can do private, you can do hybrid, etc. So depending on what your need is, you have the ability to scale it, and you have the ability to scale it back. So if you read, anybody here read Inc. magazine? Okay, Inc. magazine just recently did an article about all these 40 under 40, and a couple of these kids, I call them kids because I'm older now, I get to do that, and they basically said to start a business today, and we're talking a scalable business, they can do for less than $25,000. And they can do it through the various things that are out there now that years ago, to start up a company would have required funding 20 or 40 times that. So the ability to stop, drop, and roll is really accelerating with technology. So why is it important to me and my business? Anybody want to, why is cloud computing important to you?
Security.
Security.
Or cost effectiveness.
Cost effectiveness, that's a huge one right there.
Accessibility.
Accessibility, all great. So with cloud computing, you can be anywhere, but you can have centralized operations. You can also have an embedded disaster recovery plan. How many here have a written disaster recovery plan? Just a few. So the next time in Minnesota it snows, you're going to think of me because I'm going to say, do you have a disaster recovery plan? So the next time it snows, you should be thinking about, how do I access everything? Because if you can't get into the office, you should be able to do everything from home. But if the snow in Minnesota is heavy and it collapses the roof at your office, you better have a disaster recovery plan. The last thing is, you can have internet phones in multiple locations and it's transparent to the clients. So with the cloud, you can work anywhere. There's no location limitation. Your sandbox just got bigger. So I know people who have their feet in the sand and work out of the Bahamas 6 months a year. I can't quite convince my wife of that one. So with cloud, you can do video conferencing. Skype, I use as part of Office 365, they have Skype for Business. So in that, if I'm home, I can instant message my office. Boom, boom, boom. They can instant message me. We can do a video chat. So I can be anywhere and still have FaceTime with my office. I also use it for clients. I have a referral cluster of mother, son, grandkids, and out of the son, that level, I got a number of referrals. One to a brother, and then the brother referred to another coworker, and I did business with all of them, and I never had a face-to-face meeting with them initially. So we were able to do things by FaceTime. One of them was in Ohio, one of them was in Pennsylvania. We ended up doing everything, and then subsequently we met later on. But with FaceTime and Skype, it's like having a regular meeting. So use technology to think about how you can expand what you're doing and doing it more efficiently. So let's go back to disaster recovery plan. If you're really interested about not having the roof cave in or having a plan when it does, drj.com is a disaster recovery journal. It's very technical, but they have some good checklists on there, okay? Those checklists will give you a sense of how to start the process. What questions do you ask? What should I have in writing? Trees of who calls who, what, when, etc. But you should have something written down so that if something happens, you're not going, oh. We have a fellow MDRT member who lost his home and his business in Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. Think he knows the value of this? I say so. Okay. Some of the things. Who's going to be responsible? Who's notified? Where are you going to meet? You should have a predefined meeting place, depending on where it is. And the last thing is, at some point, conduct a fire drill. One day, come in the office as the business owner, turn out the lights, shut off the computers, and say, what's our plan? You get their attention real quick. Okay? So do a fire drill at least once a year and update your information. Electronic records. How many here are paperless? Good. Oh, I love it. Perfect. All right, for those of you who aren't, I'll go through some of the things. For those of you who are, you might have a couple pieces of information here. First of all, some questions. Why spend all the time and effort to go digital? Anybody? Future? I heard it over here. Yes. I don't lose a file anymore. What's involved typically? A lot of work. I'm going to give you a really easy way to take your office digital, and you can do it before the end of this year, if you're serious. I'll go through some of the things that are available, and then lastly, how to make that transition effortlessly and not break the bank. Okay? So, first thing is, 10 years ago, I had a vision of I was going to move my office. My lease was coming up. I was buying an office condo to house my business, and I did not want to have all these files following me. And I did not want to have expensive real estate tied up with a file room. So my goal was to get everything digitally and have a plan set up. The other thing is it off the shelf or customized? Do you want to do it yourself, or do you just want to plug and play? Do you want to do it in-house, or do you want to outsource that? The initial scanning. The last thing is workflow and operations. Depending on your broker-dealer or your carrier, you may have certain limitations. You need to check with those before you start. So the benefits, faster retrieval. My Surface Pro 3 is over there. I can access my whole office from there right now if I wanted to, either go directly there or access email and stuff like that. So if I have an issue, wherever I am, I can get the data. I cannot tell you, I don't have enough fingers and toes to tell you how many times it saved me. To be able to pull a piece of information up, talk with a CPA, talk with an estate attorney about a provision in a trust or whatever, and be able to have that data. And clients, I leverage it. How many people have refinanced a house here within the last 3 years? Okay. I tell clients, if you're doing a financial transaction, I already have your data. I have your tax return, I have your income statement, I have your W-2, I have your pay stub, I have pretty much everything. If I'm doing my job, I got it all. If you refinance, how hard is it for me to go click, 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 and guess what I have? I have a CD sent to them with all the data that they can give to their mortgage broker. Done. Guess what? Clients love it. They're like, I don't have to go find all that stuff? Nope. Thank you. So the other thing is organization of files. I'm going to show you our system and how we do it. So the other thing is naming nomenclature. We always do date, year, month, day, and name the file. We never deviate. Never. So we can always find stuff. Because I can always say, I did it between this range, I can search. It's audit trail, cost savings, more staff time can be delivered, and also I get to spend more time with clients because I'm not searching for stuff. And when I'm in a meeting in my conference room on my Surface Pro, attached to a big screen like this, I can literally find stuff and pull it up on my screen in a matter of seconds. And when we're doing high level tax work with clients, it's so nice to be able to pull up their tax return and actually walk them through why things are doing what they're doing. This is ours. So we use indexing, hierarchy, cabinet, drawer, file, and then tabs. And then we have things for insurance, securities, financial plan. We have 3 files for each. One is pending, one is in force, and one is archived. And then we have our corporate files. I have all my bank statements going back 10, 12 years digital. These are our financial planning tabs. You can see those. I won't go through those. This is the way our system works. It's a tab. Normally, you go to a file drawer, you pull it out, you pull out a file, you look at the tabs, designed the same way. So if I want to look at somebody's tax return, I go click on tax return, and I got all of them. Very easy. So plan out the design, plan out the implementation, create an operating manual, and then we have some templates as well. I hired my niece, who is now 30, when she's a CPA, works for a big Ernst & Young in New York, and between her sophomore and junior years, I had her in my house, flew her in from Texas, from Dallas, where she lives. I had her work with me, and by the summer, I had everything scanned. That's the total cost. We had 800 investment files. I don't know how many insurance files, a lot, and then all the planning files. So we set up a system. Every night I went in and I went through 50 to 100 files. I cleaned them out before she got them. She had a process. Boom, we're done. Her project, for her to get internship credit, I made her do a manual. We still use the manual 10 years later. So when I have a new employee, here's how we do it. Easy. So, virtual office, web apps, CRM, workflow, document management, virtual staff. More people are going to virtual staff. So you could have a staff person someplace else. If you have this kind of technology, you can work from anywhere. You can have an employee anywhere, which is even better. It gets much cheaper and easier every year. But last caveat, check with your compliance department. Okay? I won't go over this too much, but I will say that more and more compliance oversight on technology is coming. If your broker-dealer or your insurance carrier is not already on you, they will be. I did a little thing here on anti-spyware. We use something called Viper Internet Security, and that seems to be very good. There's a lot of others out there. Encryption. My Surface Pro 3 came out of the box encrypted. If somebody steals it, good luck, because they're not getting anything out of that. At your office, depending on what it is, a lot of new things come encrypted, but anything that has personally identifiable information, name, date of birth, social security number, address, all in one document, you better have locked down. Okay, so this is real quick. Password security. productivity, hardware, software, backup. I'm going to give you things. I'm going to go through these really quickly. You have them. LastPass is what I use now. I used to use RoboForm, but that's what I use for all my passwords. I have it on my phone. I have it on my Surface. I have it on my desktop. They all sync up. I also use Google Authenticator. Anybody know what that is? Good. Google Authenticator says, I can't log into that until I go to this little app and it gives me 6 numbers. I have to program those 6 numbers in, and then it'll let me in. That's security. Okay. 1Password is another program. I told you I use GoToMeeting. Evernote, anybody use that? I use it more for personal because I can archive stuff. MindJet and Mindomo are mind mapping. So sometimes I'll want to mind map and put some ideas and kind of think things through. I use those. I use Dropbox for business. I pay $700, $800 a year, and we have anything that is work papers, illustrations, we're working through proposals, any of that kind of stuff goes there. It's accessible anywhere. I use Dragon Dictation at my office. It's on my Surface. It's on my desktop. Gazelle, anybody heard of Gazelle? You want to sell a cell phone, an iPad, a phone, they are the place. You go in, it'll ask you, it's an iPad, when did you get it, what's the specs, is it new, used, good shape, whatever. I get a new phone, I either give the new one or the old one to my kids, because they always have the broken screens, right? Or I sell it, and Gazelle is a place to do it. Laser App we talked about. Quick is another one. Some of the insurance companies use Laser App and or Quick. We use RingCentral. RingCentral is a cloud-based system. And then there's also OneBox, which is another one, and also Phone Booth, which is the third. And then we use ScanSnap scanners. Ours have been good for 10 years. We're going to probably upgrade those this year because they had some new enhancements in the newest one, and we're probably going to get those. They're about $400 a piece, so it's pretty good. Backup, Carbonite, Mozy, and some of the vendors for your eRecords. We use Cabinet NG. It's open technology, so it helps us. These are some of the leading CRMs. And then the last thing is, this is how our office is set up. These are the things that we use, and they all work together. On the bottom, time trade. Anybody heard of time trade? Scheduling software. Okay, so you get a little, you go on, it's $50 a year. You can't afford not to have it. And then you go in and set up, how do I want a new presentation be an hour? Do I want a review meeting be an hour? Do I want a presentation meeting be an hour and a half? Do I want a phone call be an hour and a half? Do I want a lunch be an hour and a half? And you set all this stuff up. And then when they go to log in, it integrates with our Office 365 calendar in Outlook, and it'll tell them, Ed's only available these 3 times. Because I can go in on Monday and say, I never want a client meeting on a Monday. I never want a prospect meeting on a Friday afternoon, because I'm going to go play golf. So it never shows up. So it links together, and guess what? It makes it so much easier. Especially, you can put a link and a button on your website, and routinely I have clients just schedule something a couple weeks out. Saves time and energy. And for $50, you can't afford not to have it. Okay? Yesterday, on the way in, Steve said to me, we were chatting about industry stuff, and we started talking about the DOL. And so I'm on the advisory board of our broker-dealer, and we're very in tune with what's going on. So I've got a few slides to share with you on the DOL rule. And so before I get into that, any questions on any of the technology stuff that we went through?
How much research did you put into your IP goals before you locked in on the vendor you wanted to use?
A lot. Back when we started with them, there were very few.
Question?
Okay, good. He asked me how much research did I do on the IP phone system that I have. The answer is a lot. Back when we did it, there was just a few, and they've enhanced their system a lot. One of the things I looked for is, were they adequately funded, or were they a startup that was, breaking in, and what was their usage and those kinds of things. For me, I wanted to be able to have phones, but I also wanted the software integration. So every phone every desktop has the voicemail and everything that you can do on your computer. It has faxing capabilities and stuff too. Yes.
Ed, how much of your budget is allocated to tech support? Meaning somebody's computer has a problem, the printer's not working. Who does that for your office?
Okay. So, good question. So the first thing is, I'm very fortunate that I don't have a big line item for tech support, because Michael, who works for me, is 20 years younger, and he is a whiz. Last year, instead of going and buying computers, we actually built our own computers in-house. So he takes care of all that. I'm lucky with that. So, any other questions?
When you had that intern transfer your files, did you call the files first, or did you teach her how to call?
Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Okay, the intern that
Yes.
you hired to transfer your files.
Yes.
Okay, did you call the file first?
Yes. Okay, good question. So the question was, when I had the intern and for the files, did I code the files first? You know, we did the first 5 of every grouping, insurance, securities, and planning together, and we named them, and then we used those all the way through. And that's where the naming and the dating is very important. So let me finish up with some, any other questions? Yes?
You said we could get copies of these slides.
Yes.
Where?
Steve? There's a website you got that will Darren, you'll update them to the new, you'll replace the old. So the website that they have later on, see Darren and he can help you with that. Okay, so DOL ruling. Here's the difference. This year, the DOL, Department of Labor, came out with a ruling. The ruling is a regulation. It's not a law, it is a regulation. That regulation means that conflicts are prohibited in ERISA plans, IRAs, 401ks, etc. The difference is monumental because laws are usually done by our legislators and we have some form of say. In this we had none, although we had a little bit in the form of some comment period. So this is kind of the implementation timeline that's going. April 2017, you'll need to be in compliance. And in January of 28, everything will be go, and all conditions have to be met in order to have compliance. So there are 4 doors that we kind of looked at of how things will be qualified. One is it a prohibited act? Is it conflict free? So a lot of people who are in the RIA business may fall into this. But conflict-free means no other soft money contributions, anything coming from a third party other than the client. Okay? The other 3 doors are BICE, or what is known as the best interest rule exemption, and the BICE full, which the light on the level fiduciary I'll go over first. Fee only not necessarily means conflict free. Advising clients or prospects on a distribution from a 401k or a plan IRA has been the mainstay of most people's business. But because the compensation associated with the advice increases from 0, no previous rollover relationship, and no fee received, this would require an exemption. So people who think they're not going to be exposed to this rule will be. So conflict free does not mean prohibited advice free. Okay? So a client pays you a planning fee that is unchanged by a rollover advice, so your fee does not increase if you start managing the assets. So these are nuances in this rule. In doors 2 through 4, you have to qualify for the prohibited transaction exemption. So that means a lot more paperwork. I'm not going to go through this too much, but I wanted to show you a little bit on each one. One, if you go to the second door, you're now a level fee fiduciary. You have to provide written acknowledgement to the client that you're a fiduciary. You have to abide by the impartial conduct, which also means reasonable compensation. And the last thing is you're going to have to go through and take into account why you're going to make the move, and you have to show in writing the cost of the current plan that they're in and the cost of the new plan, and who pays those costs? Do they pay them or the employer? Say they're in the 401k. And finally, you have to have all this in writing with why you're making or recommending a move. So that's big departure. The door 3 is where a lot of people here in this room, if you're working for an insurance company, will fall under. So it provides relief because you're getting money from a third party, but a written plan has to be filed with the Department of Labor, and it must include a program to reduce conflicts, okay? So no incentive trips, insurance companies. So the written client, the acknowledgement by the client must be written, and the client cannot waive rights to a class action. New, big, okay? The last thing is a website. Every 90 days, a website has to be up that has every available option that you could have given that client, even though you chose not to. Imagine that. Has to be updated every 90 days, and still not quite sure how that's all going to flush out. It's going to be complicated, okay? So upon request of detailed, anytime they can request a disclosure of all the costs and all the fees and all the compensation, okay? The last door is a ruling that is limited to fixed annuities and insurance. No index annuities are given this pass. So index annuities now were left out of the rule originally. They've now been brought back into the rule, and they will go through door number 3. So disclosure of compensation first in future years, disclosure of costs first, and then the last thing is it must be approved in writing. So we're still unsure who's going to be approving. Is it the insurance company? Is it home office? Is it your local office? So it gets kind of complex. So in a final analysis, there's 9 different things I want you to think about. So first, some key takeaways. If you ask 3 lawyers on this, you're going to get 5 opinions. So right now we are in the early stages. So part of the reason to have this out today and to talk is to have you start thinking about how it's going to affect your business. RIAs will be effective if you're strictly RIA, just like I said in door number 2, because they're going to have to require more documentation going forward. Okay, much more than they're required to do now. It will have an enormous impact on the advice that we give in the retirement community. Enormous. But the plus is there's a lot of opportunities because there's going to be more transparency, and people who may have done things in the past in a competitive situation, it's going to be a little bit harder. So you need to go through and analyze your business and how your business is broken out, qualified, non-qualified, and what things you may have. The lawyers are the ones who are going to win here. Okay? So they're going to win from interpretation of the rule to lawsuits, and the last thing is class action lawsuits. So, and that's a little concerning. Lobbying is continuing to see if there's a way to delay it or offset it, but most likely it's not going to be fruitful. Everybody that we've talked to is that timing is such that things can't go through the channel quick enough. And the last thing is a change in administrations at the presidential level could play a part, but if you're like me, I mean, you might as well just flip a coin because who knows what's going to happen there. It looks like this is going to mean that if you're a 401k plan advisor, that you'll have probably less rollovers out of the plan because it'll be harder to get them out with more assets remaining there. So interesting thing how that came about. The last 2 things are distribution advice is far-reaching. So if you're a life insurance agent now and you advise on qualified plan proceeds used for life insurance through a pension max, it will fall under the rule. It's still very early, and there's a lot of interpretation that's going to come. So my advice would be stay informed, make sure you're cross-referencing and looking for anomalies between law firms of what they're looking for and giving you as far as ideas and the way they're interpreting the rules. And the last thing is Pay attention to deadlines because they're going to be coming pretty quick. Okay? So, last couple of things. Anybody here to Wayne Cotton? Great planning tool, no brown days. It's an annual calendar and also a quarterly calendar. Great for planning. If you don't have something like this to sit with a center of influence to show them what you can do for their clients, put one together. This shows what we do. It has things on our wealth management practice, it has things on our advisory model, and it goes through and just, it's a great thing to bring to lunch because it piques their questions. Anybody here have Angie Herbers? Angie Herbers writes for the financial planning industry. Kaleido.net/P4 is a paper that she put out about preparation, pay, perks, and productivity. It's for staff. So if you're looking to hire staff, something that you should look at. These are a couple things that we do. We do prospect communications that we have in every prospect meeting, and then we also have client communication pieces that we do on a monthly basis. So we do 4 quarterly economic reports. I do 2 tax reports a year. In April, around tax day, I send a chocolate bar that says, take a bite out of the IRS, and clients love it. But these are just some of the client communication pieces that we do. The last piece that I want to share with you is, I told you in our system, we have all of the tax returns for clients. On the bottom of the second page, it shows who prepared the return. If it's a paid preparer, it lists their full name, who's responsible, either a phone number and or an address. So we took that and we data mined it, and my staff goes through that, and my assistant Kimberly sets up meetings with those people that I don't know who are preparing our clients' tax returns. Okay, next week when I go back, I have 2 lunches, Thursday and Friday, both with CPAs. Now that it's after tax season, they have a little bit of time. And it's a great way to get referrals, and it's a great way to open doors to professional relationships and maintain that, okay? I always send a handwritten note after I meet with them. I do the same thing for attorneys. So we go through the wills and trusts, and we figure out who the attorney is, and we start to develop a relationship with that attorney. That has proved to be, these 2 things have proved to be 2 of the top business builders. Okay? Anybody can do this. You can walk out tonight, go to your office and do that. So the last thing is, every April, we come up with an idea similar to what Joe did in the beginning on some of the events, but every April, I personally deliver to our CPA relationships, to their office, some kind of basket. Last year, it was kind of different things. We had a abacus, and we had chocolates, and we had some different things. This year, I did just candies and snacks. And I have gotten 6 handwritten personal notes from the CPAs in those offices within 2 days, and a couple of emails. Hey, thanks. This is going to go a long way. And I do it 2 weeks before tax filing day. So I want to thank you for having me, and best of luck. Let me know if I can answer any questions in the future.